places, there's no excuse. You've been loosed.
This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to our podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. My name is Janice Pons. I'm the host on our podcast. Here we are. We've got our flag behind us that I love, our presidential seal to remind us of praying for the president of our nation, his cabinet, their families, all Americans, all of us as a nation, because we want our nation to do well. We're going to continue to move forward. You know, I've been in a lot of deep thought. We've got a lot of things going on. And, you know, I've gotten some clarity about what God's called me to do. I just see so many people on social media, church, social interactions, family interactions, relationships. They are often responding out of emotionality, and without facts. So many people, they just don't have facts. And so therefore, people are very vulnerable for deception, being duped, being offended. I've never seen offense being at such a high level as it is now, because a lot of people don't have understanding. And so I just find that I've always gravitated towards history. I've always gravitated, and probably my training, just my bent. My bent is to know who, what, when, where, how, and why. I just want to know that. And that's just me. And so in that, a lot of times we can get a glimpse of facts and how to frame things. And so I'm just going to embrace that even more. When I come on here, I'm going to talk about the who, what, when, where, how, why, as it relates to destructive patterns, from destruction to dignity, clinical perspectives. There are strategies, skills, and tools that helps us to get to these points where we can do something different and look at things different. And spiritual truths, of course, we're in warfare. We're in spiritual warfare. If you don't know it, hey, just keep hanging around, because things probably are going to escalate, if for no other reason, the times that we are in. I embrace it because I've read the end of the book, and I know what I'm called to do, and I know what's in my heart, and many are being called. Look, guys, it's time for us to shout the truth from the mountaintops, because there is truly a lot at stake. There's a lot of deception. There's a lot of lies. There's a lot of emotionality. And there is a lot of people having blinders come off of their eyes, their heads coming out of the sands, and shackles breaking off of their minds, because they're like, wait a minute, there are certain things that are not adding up. And so I'm going to talk about those things. I'm going to dissect it, and I'm going to run with it, and just giving us facts, giving us understanding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. But in all you're getting, we need to get some understanding, and you have to have facts. So that's what I'm diving into, and I'm just going to probably elevate it to another level. So we're going to keep, I love America. Y'all know me, how I feel about this country. I love America. I can't undo what's been done in the past, but what I can do is embrace what God's called me to do now, and partner with my fellow Americans that get it, and we're going to shout and support, love, pray for the others that are struggling. And we just say, come and go with us. So, this year I've been talking about the 78% of working Americans that were living paycheck to paycheck in 2024, barely making ends meet. Well, I was, of course, wanting to update those numbers. Where are we now? And currently, we can rejoice and say that approximately 65% of working Americans are living paycheck to paycheck and barely making ends meet. That's too much, but it is an improvement from the 78%. And I've seen some data that indicates that it's even lower. One that I saw where it said 52%, but more often than not, I saw in the low 60s. So we can just round it off and say 65% of working Americans are still living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet, but that's better than the 78% last year. And I venture to say that as the economic growth that is going to occur in our nation with companies coming in and investing trillions of dollars, Microsoft and Japan and so many other entities coming in here and really investing in our nation, and people starting off with some powerfully good salaries. Here in Oklahoma, there's going to be you've heard me refer to this, the #1 aluminum plant in the nation ever being built, people starting off with salaries of $80,000 a year. That's not too bad. So if you got two people in a household making that, that's good. They can probably buy a nice home. So I'm excited for people. We're going somewhere, and it's expecting us when we get there. You know, the country's going in a totally different direction than it was a year ago. And we're coming up on the end of 2025, and there's a lot of dynamics that are presenting themselves to us. So we have that mandate that we made loud and clear through our voting, and so much drama, so many dynamics continue to unfold. But, you know, we've got a new leader. We've got the battle that's going on Capitol Hill. I think it'll always be because they're going to be people that deceive, lie, trick, and just try to manipulate us. That's the history of our nation. So in that light, tonight we're going to examine something that's generated a lot of discussion in our nation. And I'm just going to call it what it is. I'm just going to come from this perspective that there are a lot of things that are wicked to the core. Wicked, downright wicked, evil to the core. And all of this ties directly into our clinical perspective, which is when we're confronted with wickedness and evil, are we going to stand up? Are we going to stand up? So our clinical perspective will be standing up. So let's explore this together, my fellow Americans and my brothers and sisters. Remember, we're going somewhere and it's expecting us when we get there. Come and go with me. Now, the Democratic Party, you know, I deal with all things political, but it has to do with all things American and all things related to humanity and our posterity, because it all ties in together. Spiritual, all of it ties in together. So the Democratic Party is and always has been wicked to the core. Now, we can't forget what they have done to us as they have held our nation hostage in many ways. In 2025, definitely since President Trump has been in leadership the second time, and with all that government shutdown. So there are dynamics that unfold related to that. But we can't forget what they've done in holding what they did, what they've tried to do, what they historically have done in holding the nation hostage for centuries. It's easy to prove. They have led the way, with slavery, sharecropping, Jim Crow, welfare control, manipulation, only promoting freedoms to a certain extent. I mean, all these so-called black leaders, I never could understand why is it that they don't promote certain things. They would say, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, all of them, they only get us so far in terms of what's wrong. I never hear them getting to the point of talking about solutions, empowerment, entrepreneurship. It's always we're a victim. It's always the white man is after us. That's what they say to people of color. It just is. And y'all know it's the truth. So why do they stay on the same mantra? And for me, I'm closer to 70 years old. I've taken care of myself really well. To God be the glory. But for all of these decades, that's all I've heard. That's all I've heard. They never have gotten to the point of getting out of this victim mentality that we're just not going to make it. And we always got to be offended. And we have a generation that has been raised on that manipulative, diabolical lie. So only having the promotion of freedoms to a certain extent, even not at all, has been a part of their mantra. Yet with agendas other than the nation improving and prospering. Now you gotta know that President Trump is talking about improving and prospering. As evidenced by, let's start with the Trump accounts. I talk about it all the time. I can't wait until my first grandchild emerges. And I'm gonna invest in that. I'm committed to it. Oh yeah, because it is a setup for success. Is that what the Democratic Party promotes? I say not. It's not hard to prove. I'm going to keep talking about these things because some folks just don't get it. The Democratic Party is counting on us to be deceived, duped, and offended. My voice, Janice Pons, my voice will be one that informs we the people. The whole fiasco about that government shutdown has been related to a big issue surrounding healthcare and the funding of specific agendas. Maxine Waters said the focus is on funding healthcare for all, including illegal immigrants. Government waste and fraud was stripped from our budget by the Trump administration that the Obama-Biden-Harris cabal had used to take care of illegal immigrants and to fund and support their sexual agendas. It's not hard to prove. We'll go there. Stick with me. We're going somewhere, and it's expecting us when we get there. They were literally coming for our children, guys. And they even had a song promoting the motives thereof. Parents who asked questions in public schools that showed up at school board meetings with these books that had all these explicit illustrations and language in there. They were escorted out by police officers, and Joe Biden literally labeled them the cabal, the Obama-Biden-Harris cabal. They labeled those parents as domestic terrorists. Look it up. This was all at the expense of we the people, as 78% of working Americans were living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet in 2024. Like I said, now the most recent data is 65% are living paycheck to paycheck. Praise God for the improvement. People are waking up, guys, and holding officials accountable as they grasp an understanding about what has been done to us as we the people. Our nation would have totally imploded if we kept going in the direction that the Democratic Party had us on. Their thrust has been to force us into being a socialist, Marxist, communist cesspool. The voice of we the people would mean nothing under their tyranny. We would simply be slaves as specific groups would get over on us, and you know what I say, over on us like a fat rat. President Trump wants us to thrive. That's why the Trump accounts will be available Independence Day 2026. I can't wait. The cost of health care is driving this current fiasco. Mind you, they had been bringing millions of people in here through all types of manipulation, namely a huge one being a parole program that I'm not going to stop talking about because it framed and set up this whole mess at a whole entire level. that parole program, and they expected us to pay for it. And as a matter of fact, we were paying for it. They were getting people paroled out of prison in Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Look it up for yourself. President Trump stopped that fiasco, as it was not even the right thing to be doing in the first place, to be bringing paroling people out of prison to come here. Now, here's a question. Here's $1 million question. Were we paroling Americans out of prison and paying for their health care? Look, the answer, we were paroling people out of prison under President Trump's first term, the First Step Back and Second Chance hiring. The majority, I think it was about 92% of the recipients and the beneficiaries of that were black men who had been sentenced to these huge prison sentences for maybe having a possession of marijuana or something such as that. But those guys, and you know what? You don't hear about any of them going back to prison. If they did, you better believe it'd be on the news. Trump's program failed, they would say. No, those guys got out, and they are grateful. Yes. So we have First Step Act. Second chance hiring. I remember when second chance hiring was going on during his first term, they had 1,500 human resource directors lined up with Kim Kardashian. She was getting her law degree, and she was working with the administration at that time. It was amazing. These guys were getting cards to be able to get to job interviews. It was outstanding. So we went from 2016 going into 2020, and this thing was rolling. We had 9,000 opportunity zones. Everything was beautiful. And then what happened? We had COVID-19 perpetrated upon us. And then all of a sudden, overnight, President Trump's leading in that election. And overnight, we wake up hours later and, oh, Joe Biden got more votes than even Obama got. Let that marinate for a minute. Guys, this whole fiasco that they did, bringing in 14 million, according to Pew Research, 14 million people, illegal immigrants into our country in 2023. In 2023, that's what had happened. So from 2020 up to 2024, this thing was out of control on steroids. And guess what? The bottom line was getting voters for the Democratic Party. That was the bottom line. Their numbers have been in the pits, and their approval rating has been as low as 27% this year. Why? People have awakened to what they've done to us and what they've continued to try to do to us, as they lie and say that President Trump is horrible. And we've got data to say just the opposite, such as we had 3 months where there were no illegals coming across the border into our country. 0 for 3 months. I think he solved the problem of illegal immigration. Would you say? Are you honest enough? Are you intellectually honest enough to say he did? People are waking up to the diabolical agendas that the Democratic Party accosted this nation with, and has accosted this nation with for far too long. We're tired of being their slaves, as they have pushed agendas from the pits of hell. Pits of hell is evidenced by what? Targeting these children the way they were. These agendas that they had, the curriculums that they had in schools, teaching kindergartners what to do to their bodies as a form of pleasure, and then adding on to the curriculum saying there's no such thing as doing it too much in one day. Why would we be teaching that to kindergartners? Why would we not focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic? And we wonder why our standardized scores plummeted. Black males, I think it's 85% of black males, young middle schoolers, cannot read past the middle school level. That is an indictment. Oh, yeah, it is. Now, the Democrat Party is emotionally manipulating Black Americans as they are being told that the Trump administration doesn't care about Black Americans and the brown people. So the messaging, the messaging that is being targeted to Black Americans, and some of them are falling for it, and some of them are like, you know what? Y'all are lying. You're flat out lying. Here's the messaging that Black folks and brown folks that they brought in, Trump hates us and he's racist. He's setting us up. He wants us to fail. So, emotionally manipulating these specific groups intentionally has been exactly what has been going on. So, essentially, people of color are pawns, P-A-W-N-S. The Democratic Party has always used people of color as their pawns. They have twisted words and lied over and over again, trying to convince us that President Trump is racist, repeatedly taking so much out of context. That whole Charlottesville thing was taken totally out of context. You go back and see what he really said, you'll see. They said, well, he was for the Nazis, a lie from the pit of hell. That's not what he said. He disavowed them over and over and over again, everything. And so before he ran for president, he was with all kinds of Black folk, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Don King, Michael Jackson, Jennifer Hudson, paying for her family when they lost their lives, taking care of everything over and over and over again. When all of this building was going on in New York, he was ensuring that contractors who were Black Americans got a significant piece of the action. That's Donald Trump. If you talk to anybody that's employed by their organization, they're just like, he is an amazing employer, but they want us to think he's a racist goofball. They're liars. The goal is to keep people of color offended and emotional slaves. They want people of color to be convinced that the white man is our problem. It's a lie from the pits of hell. It's easy to prove. So-called leadership in the Democratic Party promotes people of color tearing things up. I remember the mayor in Baltimore, Maryland, when that Freddie Gray, I think that happened. She told them to go out and vent your emotions, and you might have to tear something up. And then she turned around after they tore the city up, turned around and asked the taxpayer, asked the government, the federal government, for $20 million. Make it make sense. That's an insult to intelligence. Basic intelligence. It is. But that's what they think of us. So the Democratic Party promotes people of color tearing things up and being violent. Look at BLM. Look what they did in 2020. Burned down businesses. 24 people lost their lives. And I know of two cases where there's been accountability. But you had those folk out there in the street tearing up stuff, looting Walmart, burning down businesses, many of them Black. And we're supposed to just quietly comply. I think not. That's the extent of their problem-solving skills that they promote for far too many Americans. Now, what the Democratic Party is trying to do is to push the envelope for over $1 trillion. What they were pushing related to this whole government shutdown. What they were pushing. And they're going to always be trying to push something for over $1 trillion of our money to go back into mandatory spending to cover immigrants who were paroled out of prison. They're diabolical, slick liars. Now, let's frame this. Remember, they don't want us to understand, guys. That's part of my calling, I've realized it, to put facts out there, to frame things, to promote thought. Promote it. Look at it. Who, what, when, where, how, why. Facts. Mandatory spending This is a part of something that we've got to get, because they're going to do it again. They're liars. They're manipulative slave drivers. Always have been. That's been their history. Now listen to this. Mandatory spending is government spending required by existing laws, such as for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That does not require annual congressional approval. This spending is driven by eligibility rules for entitlement programs and payments for interest on the national debt. Unlike discretionary spending, which is set by annual appropriations, mandatory spending operates on autopilot unless Congress changes the underlying laws. Now, here's another fact. Discretionary spending. That's money that is not strictly necessary for survival or fixed by law and can be adjusted or cut back without significantly disrupting daily operations or the economy, encompassing both government programs and personal or business expenses. For governments, this refers to spending for things like education, infrastructure, and national defense, which require annual congressional approval. For individuals and businesses, it includes non-essential costs such as entertainment, vacations, or marketing, which can be verified or eliminate, which can be not verified. I misspoke. It can be varied. It can be varied or eliminated as spending priorities change. It changes. The way that the Democratic Party under the Obama, Biden, Harris cabal has manipulated, this is understanding, guys. We've got to get understanding. I believe the understanding is going to break that yoke of offense off of people and being so emotional. Share this, share it, share it, share it. Because it's being broken down to bring understanding and wisdom and understanding. The way that the Democratic Party under the Obama, Biden, Harris cabal has manipulated and lied to us regarding illegal immigrants is that they masterfully use that parole program to get millions of people in our country from Venezuela, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Cuba. How did all those people show up? They just kept showing up. And we was just like, what in the world? What in the world? I remember they had 10,000 of them in Texas under an underpass. Where'd they come from? We paid for them to get here. And we saw those masses of people coming across the border from Mexico, yet they were slick and deceptively bringing those millions of people in also through that parole program. So you had the border just coming from on these caravans, just hundreds of thousands of people. Some lost their lives trying to cross bodies of water. And they were just like, come on in. Then they do that thing called catch and release, which they could be released for up to 15 years walking our streets. And so then you had the parole thing. But Trump was talking about they're emptying their asylums and prisons. We thought he was crazy when he said that during the presidential debate with Kamala Harris. And she looked at him like he was crazy. Guys, the number of unauthorized immigrants in the United States reached an all-time high of 14 million in 2023 after 2 consecutive years of record growth, according to a new Pew Research Center estimate. The increase of 3.5 million in 2 years is the biggest on record. By the way, we went 3 consecutive months, I said, where it was at 0 with people illegally crossing the border in Mexico. Wow, thank you, President Trump. The Obama, Biden, Harris cabal didn't adhere to the guidelines and rules of the program the way it was originally set up, willfully manipulating and overlooking guidelines to get those people in our nation. The whole goal was to make them voters for the Democratic Party. Once they got them here, we indeed paid for their health care under under mandatory spending. Mandatory spending covers Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. Now, yes, the immigrants who were paroled into the United States were considered, and here's where they trick us. Well, they're not illegal immigrants. They're not illegal immigrants. You know what category they put them under? Under semantics and word games. They were lawfully present. Lawfully present. So then they can say, they're not illegal immigrants. They're lawfully present. We brought them in out of prison by the millions. Is this making sense? So yes, immigrants were paroled into our nation. They were considered lawfully present through that manipulative tactic that they were doing for their period of parole. Though parole itself does not grant a permanent legal immigration status, parole is a discretionary authorization from the Department of Homeland Security to allow certain non-U.S. citizens to temporarily enter or remain in the U.S. for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. While paroled, individuals can apply for work authorization and may be eligible for other pathways to a permanent status. But what they were planning to do is just a rubber stamp them. They wanted them to be voters, and there were illegals that voted. That's proven. You can go on Google and easily prove that. Guys, you have to understand that the Obama, Biden, Harris cabal totally ignored our Constitution and the rule of law. The goal was to get millions of people in here and just rubber stamp them into citizenship. They were slick, deceptive, manipulative liars that cabal, that's their mantra. That's what they do. They constantly overrode laws that were on the books. They violated our Constitution repeatedly. They used us, me, you, our taxpayer dollars coming out of my paycheck, your paycheck. They used us as pawns as their pockets got full when they got their cronies and family members in strategic positions through those monies, through those money laundering fronts. Schemes that were going on through the non-governmental organizations that were shut down. 83% of them shut them down. Marco Rubio shut them down. Thank you, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, for stopping those money laundering schemes. The battle that we see going on in Portland, Oregon, and Chicago, Illinois, it's all centered around ICE. Getting these people out of here. Some of them, they were paroled out of prison. They were criminals. Some of them had all kind of assaults, every type of assault that one could perpetrate on somebody. They were guilty of that. Even to minors. The leadership in these blue Democrat-run cities don't even cooperate with federal workers trying to protect our nation. They have proven hands down that our safety means absolutely nothing to them, guys. We're going to continue to dissect all of this because we have to understand that these wicked people are from the pits of hell. In the midst of the attempts to keep Christian conservative constitutionalists who are Black Americans, we got a special targeting that happens with us. We do. There are those who dare to reject the lies presented to us, and we refuse to be manipulated and controlled. And they don't want us talking about it. They don't want any conservative constitutionalists talking about it. And if you're a Christian, conservative, Black American constitutionalist, they don't like it. Why? They want us to stay on the Democrat Party. Stay over there. To that end, I want to recognize and honor the outstanding gift of Mark Lennon, a wonderful man who's a Facebook friend of mine. He's an excellent poet. And our clinical perspective speaks to the power of standing up. Mark Lennon is gifted. He captures this so beautifully about standing up as standing up will definitely involve those who dare to think for themselves. We reject the manipulation, we reject the control, and we reject the lies. So I'm going to share his masterful poetry, and it captures our clinical perspective. standing up. Mark Lennon. Black conservatives, those who dare to think, by Mark Lennon. We've used our own minds and paid the cost. Decades-old friendships we've even lost. Such is the price paid in this nation when those who are black leave the plantation. We fight for the unborn. We fight for their lives, for the biblical concept of husbands and wives. We fight for our children, for their education, opposing the left's low expectations. In spite of these stances, we find we're attacked, especially by those who, like us, are black. They come to defend their masters, the left, promoters of lies, murderers, and theft. The left pours the Kool-Aid they eagerly drink and persecute those who dare to think. They've smitten the shepherd. They've scattered the sheep. Blacks are regarded as pets they can keep. For years, they've been taught what they should think. The left's brand of Kool-Aid, a mind-numbing drink. Our young minds perverted, our unborn they kill. Although they slay us, some trust them still. Devoted to evil, with blinded eyes, unable to see. They're just merchandise. Their faith set aside, come election season, they find it strange when we choose reason. They parrot the left just like lip sync, attacking all blacks who dare to think. Rejected by friends, disowned by kin. Because we've refused the party of sin. We've lost out on jobs. We've been ostracized because we've refused to fall for their lies. We are a rare breed in this land we trod. We stand in our shoes. Takes courage from God. To stand in our shoes takes courage from God. Thank you, Mark Lennon. He's talking about being a black conservative. I know. I had 3 public smear campaigns done on me just because I was speaking the truth and left the Democratic Party. What have we looked at tonight? Wicked to the core, and our clinical perspective explored standing up. Guys, we were all over the place, and wickedness had tried to take over. Yes, it had. That is why so many people like President Trump. He's not playing about our security, and he has a great grasp of the wisdom of standing up like never before. There's a lot at stake. Listen, thank you for coming. We're going to keep talking about these things. We went a little over tonight, but it was worth it. You know, I've been talking about Patreon. I've decided to put a hold on that. I have a huge following, a pretty big following, and I'm so grateful for it. Of the different pages I'm involved with, about 43,000 followers on Facebook at the current time, and I'm so grateful for that. And there were those that have said, do you have exclusive content? So I decided that I'm going to go with that flow for exclusive content. So if you want to subscribe, you can go to my Janice Pons page, and you can subscribe there if you like. And so I'm going to always be dealing with the truth. Who, what, when, where, how, why. Guys, we got to get an understanding, and the enemy of our souls doesn't want us to understand. He wants to keep us wrapped up in emotionalism, but we're going to keep talking about these things because we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we go from destruction, all these dynamics I've been talking about tonight, that's destruction. But God wants to take us to dignity, clinical perspectives, a way of thinking, strategies, skills, and tools, wholeness, being the best we can be. Spiritual truths. God has a plan for America, and he's not done. Why? We're still here. Yes. Listen, guys, I appreciate you. I love you. God bless you. God bless your family. And I'll see you next week. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are one power, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information.